Critic. I read it, you listen. Now, you guys are probably thinking that today's fanfic has something to do with the 1988 movie called A Fish Called Wanda, which was a comedy crime movie, right? No, this is actually a Fairly Odd Parents fanfic with the same exact name. The only similarity between the two is that there's a character called Wanda in it. I had you guys fooled, didn't I? Yeah. So, yes, it's a Fairly Odd Parents fanfic. It is written by someone named Commander, who has written 62 stories. It's rated T, it's in English, it's drama, romance, Wanda Cosmo, it has 143 reviews. Wow, and it was written back in 2003. Well, then again, the show was popular back then, and I don't think the show is still running, although they did make that really bad live-action movie with the CGI Wanda and Cosmo, which was kind of creepy looking and probably gave a lot of people nightmares. It didn't give me nightmares. No, not at all. Moving forward. Yes. Yeah, today's fanfic is Fairly Odd Parents. Haha, yeah. Written back in 2003, the story is complete. However, the word count, let's just say it's kind of big, so I'm only going to be reading the first chapter of today's fanfic. So, let's not waste any time and let's get started. Oh, we're starting with an author's note. A very long author's note that takes up the entire page. How long is this author's note anyway? 630 words for an author's note? Wow! I think I just found the world's largest author's note. I didn't think it was possible. 630 words for an author's note. That's enough for a small one-shot story. Wow. And the thing about this author's note, most of it is not the original author's note. The original author's note is this little paragraph right down here. I mean, yes, I know that the story, it says it was last updated back in 2003, but still, why did you add a huge author's note just to say that this story isn't your best? Well, let me be the judge of that. Okay, I'm not going to read the author's note. Actually, I'll read the original author's note and not this huge blob of text, because if I read that, we'd be here all day. So let's read the original author's note and get on with the story. Me again, writing a FOP story with a point. They'll actually have chapters. First and foremost, I'd like to apologize for any inconsistencies with my story. Apology accepted. I haven't seen all the episodes, and knowing me, I'll probably write something that contradicts something for an episode I haven't seen. Well, I know the feeling. I contradict myself all the time with my reviews. So we're both in the same boat. Or maybe even one I have seen. Just pretend it takes place in an alternate universe or something. Good idea. And now for the legal stuff. Fairly Odd Parents doesn't belong to me. The chapters don't belong to me except for Castle, Sarah, Paula, Leslie, Randy, Xavier. That's about it for this chapter. Even the title doesn't belong to me. Want to know something funny? I've never even seen the movie A Fish Called Wanda. Finally, I would like to thank the people who reviewed my pointless story. Go all treat yourself to a cookie and think of me and try not to puke. Okay, that's enough. I'm going to pause for a second here. So, why exactly did they call this fanfic A Fish Called Wanda if they've never actually seen the movie A Fish Called Wanda? To be perfectly honest with you, I haven't seen the movie either. But, you know, if you go to the Internet Movie Database, you can quickly see what the movie's about. So I don't know if they just like the title or if it's supposed to be the same idea. I don't know. For those who have seen A Fish Called Wanda, the movie, and you're reading this fanfic with me, why don't you guys let me know in the comments if this was supposed to be, you know, a spoof of that movie or not. So let's not waste any time and let's read the actual fanfic. Okay. Timmy Turner threw his Crimson Chin comic book in the already read pile by his bed. Well, I've just finished reading 352 comic books and I can't remember a thing I read. He stood up, opened his bedroom door, and poked his head out, listening for any commotion. Nothing. Of course. The recently turned 11-year-old boy sat back down on his bed and sighed heavily, his blue eyes scanning the floor for no particular reason. Why was he so tense? Because today was the day. The day he had been both looking forward to and dreading for the last 4 months. His baby sibling's due date. For the last 4 months? So in cartoon world, is the term for having a baby only 4 months? Or maybe for the first 5 months he didn't give a crap and now he cares? Maybe I'm just being nitpicky. Let's continue. Of course, that didn't really mean much, but still, his mom could go into labor any time. And Timmy knew that he had to be around because he wasn't really sure his dad would be able to handle it. Lucky for him it was summer, but still. Yeah, that's kind of sad when you have to rely on your 11-year-old son for the birth of your new baby and not your husband. Timmy sighed again. His dad seemed to like the name Rastis for boy. In parentheses, author's note, my dad almost named my younger brother this. I'm serious, my mom wanted to name him Henry. Lucky for him, my older brother talked them out of those, and they compromised with Davy, and for the record, my older brother's name is Tim. You could have easily saved this little author's note for the end of the chapter. Do not put it in the middle of the story. People will ask me why, and here's my reasons. It ruins the flow of the chapter. If you're getting into a chapter and then all of a sudden the author says, hi guys, quick fun facts about my life, da-da-da-da-da, it kind of gets annoying. You don't see it in good novels like, the Harry Potter series or the Stephen King novels. No. So don't do it in fan fiction. Please and thank you. Let's continue. Timmy would have preferred a brother than a sister, but a brother named Rastis? That is a weird name, I will admit. It kind of sounds like something from Dragon Ball Z. Kind of sounds like Raditz. So what are you going to name your next son? Trunks? Are you going to name one Bardock? Or are you going to name one of them Kakarot? Or the Japanese version Kakaroto? Yeah, those kids are really going to be made fun of when they hit grade school. And middle school. And in high school, they'll want to kill themselves. Yeah. Let's continue. Unfortunately, the baby hadn't really shown them if it was a boy or a girl. Shouldn't you say, unfortunately, the ultrasound hadn't really showed them if it was a boy or girl? That would have made more sense. They wouldn't know until it was born. And it sure is taking its sweet time. Cried Timmy. He looked at his empty fishbowl. Cosmo, Wanda, and Castle were gone visiting Cosmo's mother. Gee, I'm surprised Wanda's last as long as she has, said Timmy. Just after he said that there was a pink poof in Wanda, Timmy's fairy godmother appeared hovering over the fishbowl. She was holding her 4-month-old daughter, Castle. Aha, said Timmy, smiling. Couldn't put up with Mama Cosmo that long? She was in a rare form tonight. I know I'm mangling her voice, shut up, said Wanda. Her pink eyes narrowed slightly. I would have seen how she looked at Castle. Half of the time she must have been thinking, that's Cosmo's daughter, and she would gaze at her. But the other half of the time she must have thought, that's Wanda's daughter, and then she glared at her. Let me hold her, said Timmy, taking Castle out of Wanda's arms. Timmy was very fond of his fairy god sister, and he bounced her up and down on his knee. Was your grandma freaking out at you, Cassie? He asked, using the nickname for her he always used. Castle laughed and cooed, her silver eyes filling with excitement. Wanda smiled at them. You're going to make a great older brother, Timmy. Timmy ran his fingers through his brown hair, scratching his head in worry. I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet, he admitted. Oh, don't worry about it, said Wanda, shrugging a little. You're so good with Castle. I'm sure you'll be just as good with your sibling. Timmy handed Castle back to Wanda. She sure is growing up fast. How long does it take fairies to grow up? They grow up really fast, said Wanda. For the most part, they're about fully grown when they're about 20. That's not really fast to me, said Timmy. Well, sweetie, remember how long fairies live, said Wanda. Fairies are only a child for a very small part of their lives. Except for Cosmo, laughed Timmy. Wanda chuckled a little. But then, how do fairies die anyway? Can they? Oh, of course, said Wanda. We're not immortal. I told you that fairies are dying out. Right now there are about 500,000 fairies, but about 100 or so die each year of old age or disease or freak accident or something. And we're not just replacing them. 500,000 isn't really a small amount, said Timmy. It is when you think about the fact that there are 6 billion humans. said Wanda. She sighed sadly. And the number of unhappy children out there. Well, a lot of fairies are becoming godparents. Fairy world is almost empty. Geez, what do you think they'll make Jordan a godparent? Asked Timmy, laughing a little at the idea. Poor kid, they'd be even more miserable, said Wanda, laughing a little herself. Hey, I have another question. Why do you and Cosmo have crowns, but Castle doesn't? I mean, will she get it at a certain age? And when she does get her wand? She'll get her wand when she is 12, explained Wanda, but she won't get her crown until she made a significant contribution to the fairy world. Lots of fairies don't even get crowns. So, a crown is kind of like a medal of honor or something? Asked Timmy. Wanda nodded. That's a good comparison. Timmy smiled, but his smile turned into a look of confusion. Then how the heck did Cosmo get one? Wanda laughed a little. Well, the story behind that is... And why do you fairies want for no adult to know about you? Cried Timmy suddenly. I mean, what's so wrong with that? Why do you spend your whole lives with human kids who'll just become adults anyway? And why do you live in fairy world? I mean, where did it come from? And if you're so secretive, how come there's fairy tales? And if Georgian's a fairy or Jorgen's a fairy, how come he doesn't have any wings? And all right, shut up, cried Wanda. She pulled out a writing pad that she had written Timmy's questions on and frowned. Oh, I see what's coming up here. Commander wants me to tell my life story. Oh, they're breaking the fourth wall. Commander's the author of this fanfic. Clever, I will admit. Sometimes this works, other times it doesn't. Let's see if it works. Well, duh, said Commander. Didn't you read the summary of the story? Tell your life story? Asked Timmy. Can that really answer all my questions? Wanda looked at it again at her writing pad. Yes, and then some. She sat down on Timmy's bed, poofed up a cradle for Castle, and motioned Timmy to come closer to her. Get comfortable, this will take a while. How long? Asked Timmy. Well, the story will have chapters. What does that tell you? Commander's actually writing chapters? Cried Timmy. That's a stretch for her, isn't it? Commander glared a little. I've written stories with chapters, she cried. What about Origins, or Dot Dash, or even my first crappy Powerpuff Girls stories? And Sophie, which I should probably finish before I start this story. Too late, laughed Timmy. We're getting off topic here, cried Wanda. Let's see, where to begin? Okay, that's good. Where's that? We're going back to when I was 6, Wanda said with a smile. I was getting ready for school and... Mom, I don't know, therapy or something. Paula looked over at her 24-year-old daughter, Sarah, almost fuming. Sarah, you know I have to get your sister to school. What is it? Sarah pulled her long red hair out of her eyes. It's about Wanda, you know, my sister who you have to get to school. You know what she did last night. I had a date with Tony, and she stole my wand in the middle of it and turned him into a cow. Paula smiled. She's so talented. Mom, I lost my boyfriend because of her. What was she doing there anyway? Paula sighed. She just wants to be like you know. You're her older sister. She sighed again. I knew I should have waited a little bit before having another child. 18 years is just too close an age. Paula looked around the archaeological-like house she lived in. Where is she anyway? Wanda, it's time for school. Wanda flew in quickly. Paula sighed at the sight of her younger daughter. Her pink hair was a mess and her clothes were dirty. Wanda, I told you to look presentable for school, she said, waving her wand and cleaning Wanda up with a poof. Now hurry up, we're late. Mommy? Said Wanda, pointing up at her mother's hair. Your hair's kind of messy too. Paula waved her wand again, and dark purple hair was pulled up in a bun out of her eyes. Now let's go, she cried, dragging Wanda out the door. I'm sorry about last night, Sarah, cried Wanda just before her mother poofed her off to school. Sarah sighed unhappily. She makes me feel so guilty sometimes, she muttered. Wanda's mother made sure she was in the right place, then poofed back home. Wanda sighed a little. She knew her mother loved her, but she was always so busy. She was a wand sculptor and took her job up a lot of her time. Her father was one too. In fact, that was how her parents met. Wanda flapped her small wings and flew over to the school hovel thing. It was only her 4th day of school, but she already made friends. Her best friend so far was a girl named Leslie. They had a lot in common, besides the fact that they both had pink hair and pink eyes. Speaking of Leslie, there she was, flying over to Wanda and crying, "What's wrong, Leslie?" asked Wanda. Leslie sniffed. "It's Randolph." Wanda gasped. Randolph was the school bully who hated being called Randolph. So what does he call himself? Wanda slapped her hand over Leslie's mouth. "Don't let you hear you call that," she cried. "I don't care," cried Leslie. "He has a play wand, and he sent sparks out of it right at me, and now he's doing it to everyone else." "Let's teach him a lesson," growled Wanda, zooming over there. Sure enough, Randy was terrorizing the whole class. Oh, well, yeah, Randy's a good nickname. I guess I can't blame him for wanting to be called Randolph. Kind of reminds me of Rudolph. Yeah, let's continue. Wanda gasped. That bully, he was holding a kid named Cosmo in one hand and a kid named Xavier in the other hand, and it looked like he was going to smash their heads together. "Why don't you beg for mercy?" taunted Randy to his captives. "Please, let me go," cried Xavier. "What did I do?" I like cheese," said Cosmo stupidly. I don't call either of those begging for mercy," said Randy, bringing his arms apart, and Wanda zipped in front of Randy, a toy wand in her hands, which she was pointing right at his face. "Let them go, Randolph." Randy glared at Wanda, dropped his captives unceremoniously, and glared at Wanda. "Don't call me that! You deserve it, meanie!" cried Wanda, holding the toy wand right in front of his face. Still glaring at him, Randy laughed. "You don't know how to use one of those. They're not very powerful anyway. I found out how to make the sparks by accident, and I'm the smartest one here." Wanda smirked. "I turned my sister's boyfriend into a cow last night." All her classmates gasped. Randy stared at her for a long time. Wanda felt a little scared, but tried not to let him know that. Finally, Randy shrugged. "Geez, I don't care. I'll have some fun some other way." And he flew off. Wanda turned around to face her classmates, who were all staring at her. Leslie, who was a little further back than everyone else, had eyes popping out almost 3 inches, and still where they were dropped on the ground. Cosmo and Xavier were staring up at Wanda too, their jaws hanging open. Finally, the fairies cheered. They all ran up and hugged Wanda and called her a hero. After a lot of this, Wanda was left with only 3 other fairies, Leslie, Cosmo, and Xavier. "They were right, Wanda. That was awesome," cried Leslie. "Randolph actually looked scared of you." Xavier and Cosmo were still staring at Wanda with their jaws open. They looked ridiculous. Xavier had dark green hair and eyes, and Cosmo had a much brighter color green for his hair and eyes. Finally, Xavier spoke. "Wanda, you're our hero." "Yeah, even more than those people," said Cosmo happily, seeming to break out of his stance. "Randy wasn't going to smash their faces in, but they would have if you hadn't come," said Leslie. "You're so cool, Wanda." "Well, geez, what do you expect me to let him do that?" Their teacher stepped outside. "Class is starting. Come inside." Wanda flew into the classroom quickly. "Wow, they're all treating me like I'm some kind of goddess or something," she thought. Author's note, sorry this chapter was so long. Oh yeah, I drew some pictures of Castle if anyone wants to see them. Pencil on lined paper, that is. Aren't I so professional? Anyway, Nova Chan's picture of Aphrodite was much cuter. Castle's kind of homely, but if you want to see them, tell me. See you next chapter. Huh. Well, I have to say the story layout is actually pretty decent. The structure of the sentences is good. This person knows their spelling and grammar, and the story itself is rather interesting. If you guys are a fan of Fairly Odd Parents, and if you want to keep on reading the story, the link is down in the description below. I enjoyed it. Okay, well, I'm the FanFic Critic. I read it, you listen, and I'm going to look up more information about this movie called A Fish Called Wanda.